Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Way Show. So happy to have you with me. A little bit past 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And yes, I am here talking yet again, trying my best to do what I said I would do, which was I was going to try to do 20 shows in a row. I don't know why I said that, but I did. So now I'm going to try, and this is basically number what? 3? Is that right? So I got like 17 left or whatever number it is. I forgot. I will count them though. I promise you I will count them. So I will try to do 20 more if I can. Tomorrow I will be on at 1 p.m. I'm doing my radio show tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern from WYSL, the Voice of Freedom, and a couple other radio stations that we put together on the Voice of Freedom Network. So I hope you'll be enjoying that. But tonight, I'm not talking about that. Tonight, I wanted to bring up something. Yesterday, I did something a bit local. I did much more New York stuff, and then we went into things like family court and stuff like that. For those of you remember from last night, very interesting show. Tonight, I'm bringing up something a bit more grand strategy. Maybe that's the right answer. Grand strategy, maybe more global, whatever you might be thinking. So maybe more like that. And that is the idea of, are we in right now or about to be in WW3, Cold War II, neither, or both? And the point I want to bring up here, is, are we, all right, let me look if I could after World War II. After World War II, we went clearly into the Cold War. Most people agree with that. That's what happened right after World War II into the Cold War. So what did that Cold War mean? The Cold War in theory was, we're not in a hot war, right? We're not in a hot war. We've been saying that. And a lot of people have been telling me, Larry, we've been at peace since 1945, blah, blah. We have not. The Cold War was hot many times. And sometimes we were fighting it, and sometimes we weren't. But it was hot many times. Korea, perfect example, right? Korea started it. Vietnam, right? We moved on from there to have a bunch of hot wars, over 50,000 dead in Korea, over 50,000 dead in Vietnam. So we lost lots of people. The Russians had wars. They fought in Afghanistan, right? So they also fought. So I think you saw it in all different ways. But during the Cold War, it wasn't just America against the Soviet Union. At that point, obviously, it wasn't Russia. It was also the Soviet Union. So there was a secondary group, which was the Chinese. The Chinese were kind of secondary to the Soviets during the Cold War, right? And many times when we fought our proxy wars, we'd fight against either directly dollars going in from the Soviet Union, or we would fight against the Chinese directly. In the Korean War, we fought directly against the Chinese. There were Chinese troops fighting against American troops directly in the Korean War. In Vietnam, there was mostly Chinese and or Russian money. There was Russian and Chinese money, obviously, in Korea also, against fighting in Vietnam. When we fought when the Russians fought in Afghanistan, American money was being thrown into Afghanistan against the Russians. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All of those. Don't we have that now? Yes. I don't think we're in World War III at all. I think we're in Cold War II. Cold War II. And here's the problem. We actually won the first Cold War. The problem is with America, as has been forever, is we win the war and then lose the peace. That's been true since our Civil War. We won the war, well, America won the war, and then lost the peace, which of course trashed half our country. World War I, won the war, lost the peace, which made World War II. World War II, won the war, lost the peace, which made the Cold War. The Cold War, won the war, lost the peace, which gives us Cold War II. We keep losing the peace, even if we win the war. Doesn't matter, right? We lost the peace. We lost the peace here too. What does that mean? They swapped. When we beat the Soviet Union and it fell, that was the rise of China. So now our Cold War is actually against China. It was against the Soviet Union, who was funding most of the other proxy wars. And then China was a secondary partner, which fought directly in the Korean War. Well, now it's reversed. Now the Cold War is against China, and Chinese money goes everywhere. But the Russians now, the secondary piece, and now they're fighting the physical wars. It's swapped. The problem is we're still stuck in a Cold War. So it rotated, and now we're stuck in a Cold War again. So what does that mean? That means we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to fight with cash yet again, and we will be in combat yet again. I know people are going to tell me, I hear it all the time, and this is something that Republicans will always say. Republicans always say this. No, Larry, it's not true. It's because we have weak presidents. That's garbage. I know Republicans get mad when I say it. That's a story to tell you. Not true at all. Doesn't matter if it's a Republican president. Doesn't matter if it's a Democratic president, strong or weak. Let's not forget, they blew up our embassy in Lebanon when Reagan was president. Was Reagan poor? Was Reagan weak? They attacked the Twin Towers the first time when Clinton was president. Was he weak? Was he strong? They attacked our Twin Towers in 9/11 when Bush was president. Was he weak? Was he strong? Right? Doesn't matter. They attack whenever they feel it's appropriate to attack. They don't care what our president is. That's stuff the Republicans will tell you because they always want to have the tough presidents. That's horseshit. They attack whenever they want to attack, whenever it fits them. That's when they attack. That's when they fight us. Right? They invaded Afghanistan under Carter. So weak or strong president, they attack when they think it's appropriate to attack, whatever that is. They know it's not World War III. It's a Cold War, which means America will throw money at stuff and maybe throw some troops. And they're okay with it. Now, here's the part for us that bothers me and that makes it harsher for us, is that we were involved at the top level both times. The Europeans were able to be our secondary piece throughout the first Cold War and now the second Cold War. But the Russians and Chinese got to swap. We didn't get to swap. We still got to be top dog. We didn't get to, let the Germans be top dog, let the Brits be top dog. We're top dog both times. That's a problem. That makes it harder for us to move through this. And a second Cold War, we've seen it already. We're seeing the blocks pop up, right? It was the Warsaw Pact versus, NATO. Now it's NATO versus BRICS. The same thing's popping up again. Now, was the Warsaw Pact really, a massive block economically? It wasn't. Is BRICS? Not really. I mean, I think BRICS is stronger than the Warsaw Pact was, but it doesn't match the EU yet. It's not there. It might one day, who knows, but it's not there. The problem I have here is we are acting like nothing has changed and we're still good. When we were fighting the first Cold War, remember this, we were a monopoly. America had everything. Everything. Financially, there wasn't a China there or Russia that was worth anything. Most of the world was bombed out from World War II. And we were growing everything. We were in our heyday from like 45, like 65, in that area. All of a sudden, things began to fall apart because the other countries started coming back online and things changed. We don't have that now. We are now starting, I should say, in this Cold War, not at a positive, but starting at a negative. Starting at a negative financially, emotionally, culturally, socially. And after World War II, America was like USA #1 no matter what. I mean, we had everybody coming back home. We had tons of money. We had tons of everything. That's not true now. That's not true now. So I am concerned. I do think we are in a second Cold War. And my worry is, even if we win this Cold War, if we win against the Chinese, if we win, and we can, I'm not saying we can't, we win, will we finally win the peace? Or will we lose the peace again? And will there be whatever, the other country, will India be the one that takes over that? I mean, I don't think that. I made it up. Probably not that. India was neutral in the first Cold War and friendly enough to either side, whatever made sense, right? Friendly enough to Russia when they need to be, friendly enough to us when they need to be, and doing it again. India is the smartest one of the bunch. India is friendly to whoever they think at any given time. Well done, India, right? They're getting hooked up. Meanwhile, we're sitting there trying to fight each other. And the Chinese are having problems too. The Chinese are getting screwed over in Russia, in Africa. What are they going to do? Are they going to use the Russians to do some enforcement? Are they going to use the Russians as their enforcers? Maybe. I don't know. Now, the Middle East is exploding again. Who are they going to use now? This is not going well. Proxy war after proxy war. And again, Americans are everywhere. Americans are in Syria, as most of you know. Over 1,000 Americans are in Syria right now. What happens if that explodes? Are we now in another proxy war? Proxy war after proxy war after proxy war. This stuff drives me crazy. Let me grab some comments if I could. I wanted to get that off my chest because it bugged me, but I wanted to get it out there if I could. Vivek, how are you, sir? Almost early. I like this. I think it's looking like World War III, but it seems like Cold War II now. Now, here's the issue. World War II, when it ended, started Cold War III. We never had a World War III, right? World wars aren't that common. Obviously, they aren't that common. And I think what will happen is historians years from now, maybe 100, 200 years from now, whatever it is, some are already saying it. They're saying World War I and World War II was actually one world war. It was actually one war with a big break in between, but it was one war. And it actually was a war for German hegemony. That's what the war was actually about. It was about, will Germany militarily dominate Europe or not? That was the question. And the answer obviously is no, they were not going to do that. But they did dominate economically. But would Germany as a nation, would it dominate Europe? You know, would it replace Britain as a power over Europe? Would that happen or not? Would Germany be the power or not? And the answer is no. I would argue the Cold War I and II, is a similar one war. Will America maintain its dominance over the entire world? Will it or not? Will the empire fall? At the end of Cold War II, whenever that is, maybe it's 50 years, like the other one was, maybe, right? At the end of Cold War II, if America loses, does America become Britain, right? A former shell of its empire. Is that what happens? Or does America dominate and say, no, the war's over and we will dominate the world? That's it. America dominates the world. We've won Cold War I and Cold War II, and we finally win the peace this time. And does that happen? I do not think World War III is coming right now. I don't see it right now. It could happen. I don't see it right now. I think a worse problem for us would be what happens if America goes into civil disorder, right? If America goes into civil disorder, what happens then? Do we become like Hadrian, the Emperor Hadrian, and kind of close ourselves off and build our, economic or whatever physical walls and kind of close off and say, no, we're America now, and that's it? Or do we say, you know what, we're having internal problems, double down, off we go start these wars? That could happen too. So yes. So anyway, want to make sure that was up there if I could. All righty. Let's see if I can go down here. Let's see if I can grab this. A couple of these. The AC says, I didn't get a 30-minute notification. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. You're supposed to get one of those. I don't know why I didn't. I did put it up there. So yeah, I did put it there. Yes. Rick says, thank you for being a member, Rick. Smack that like button. I would agree. Do that. And also, if you want to, you can also super chat. Of course. Peace Laws, thank you for the $5. Maybe you meant to say grand strategy for peace, not tragedy. I want a grand strategy for peace. I do. And I think it's possible, but it's not easy. And it's not easy for a couple of reasons. One would think, look, let's just stop bothering people. And that would be the end of it. That's what one would think. Sadly, that's not how it always works. But we do want to be strong enough, right? I don't like the idea of just, I would rather have the Teddy Roosevelt speak softly and carry a big stick style than we run everything, do as we say, which is what we've been doing recently. I'm not saying we should be weak. I'm saying we shouldn't assume that aggression is always the right answer, that sanctions and war is the first answer, and too often we look at it as the first answer. They did something, we don't like them, so let's act, versus they did something, we don't like it, let's just walk away. Let's just walk away, right? And you might go, Larry, that sounds stupid. I'm going to give you the best example I can give you. It's a recent one. And many of you heard it before. Vietnam. We bombed their country, the country of Vietnam, more than we bombed both Germany and Japan during World War II. We dropped more ordnance on Vietnam than that. There are people to this day walking around Vietnam getting their legs and arms blown off from minefields from 30, 40, 50 years ago. Still happening in Vietnam, right? Still to this day. Yet we eventually just walked away. We fought for 10 years, about 60,000 dead, hundreds of thousands wounded if you include invisible injuries and physical injuries, both hundreds of thousands wounded. And we literally just ran away. That's what happened. We lost that war and we ran away. And as we ran away, we just left them. And then 20 years later, they're our trading partners. But Larry, they have a bad government. It's their government. What do I care? Is it better than us bombing them and killing them? I would argue yes. If you were Vietnamese, I'd bet you'd be like, you know what? I have a choice. I can be blown up by Americans or have my own government, which I'm not happy about. I'll keep my own government. I'll take that. Those are my two options. My options are American occupation and being blown up, or the government that I have now that at least is my government. And if I want to change it, it's up to me to change in whatever way I need to do so in my own country. Okay, I'll take that. And now you can like buy furniture from Vietnam right now if you want to. They're our trading partner. Walking away works. It does. It doesn't always feel good. Walking away from Vietnam hurt America horribly in the feels. But in reality, it was the best thing America could have done. Just walk away. What did Reagan do after they blew up our barracks in Lebanon? He just walked away. That's what he did. So he's the strongest president. Just walked away. What did Nixon do? Vietnam. He just walked away. Sometimes it's okay to follow what to follow what Humongous said in the Road Warrior.
Just walk away, and there will be an end to the horror.
He's not wrong. Sometimes we can just walk away, and there will be the end to the horror. Do as Humongous orders. It is the right answer. So yes, I know some of you will enjoy that one, I'm sure. So, all righty. John says, President Biden lifting sanctions on both Russia and Iran on day one allowed them to bring in billions directly and led to Russia invading Ukraine and Hamas invading Israel. I don't doubt that's true. I don't doubt that that was part of the answer. But let's assume that that's accurate. Well, what if that happened earlier or he didn't do it? So whenever they got the money, then they were going to invade if that's true, right? I'm not sure that's true about Russia. I think Russia could have invaded whenever they wanted to invade. They're all getting sanctioned whenever. I think they could have done whenever they were appropriate, right? But maybe we could slow things down or speed things up. Maybe that's true, John. I'm not saying that's incorrect. It could be true. But 2 points. One, eventually they're going to get the money. Maybe it's 10 years later. Maybe it's 5 years later. Maybe it's 20 years later. Whatever. I mean, get the money. Or second, why is it our business? Why is it our business? So then in theory, anyone that I'm unhappy about making an invasion, should I embargo them all until they don't do it? No. Right? Is it just I like Ukraine or I just like Israel or I just like whatever, Rwanda, you name the country, Yugoslavia? No, it's not our place to do either of them. That's one of my issues also on top of it. Why are we trying to be the police of the world? It isn't our place. It isn't our place. Let them solve their own problems. That's the issue. So Andrew says, in the economic field, it's BRICS. In the military, it's CSTO. I'm not sure what. Oh, is that the 4 groups that are together? I don't know what that is. Maybe that's true. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Jacob says, I feel like the Cold War never ended. It just evolved into a false sense of peace while conflicts in the 2 largest superpowers raged on. Also, hi, Larry. Made it after doing a few days of homework. I'm glad you did your homework. Nice. No, I agree. However, I'm saying it flipped, right? At the end of the 80s, the Soviet Union was clearly broken. And we could have assisted them and made things better. And we didn't. We tried to put them under. And then you have a guy like Putin who says, oh, you're going to put my country under? I will do whatever it takes to stop it. I don't care what it is. I will do whatever it takes to stop it. I don't care who I have to hurt, how I have to hurt them, how I have to act. I will do whatever is required. And that's what he's doing. Whatever is required. And look, I disagree with some of the things he's done clearly. But I understand it also, right? I get it. I understand why he would do the things he does. I get it. We had the opportunity to win that peace, and we didn't. We literally said, oh, okay, great. Now you're in trouble. let's crush things more. Instead of, you know what, let's bring you in. We should have brought the Russians in to the best of our ability. It would not have been easy. Please don't get me wrong. They would have been like, we love you. And oh my God, hugs. Of course not. Of course not. It would have been difficult, but it's better than what we have now, right? Imagine if we had just done that and instead, again, would have been hard, but not impossible, and better than what we have now. The AC says Putin will broker a peace between Trump and Xi. Heck, he already dropped the proposal. He dropped the proposed Mexico tariffs. This piece, right? This part of people trying to broker peace. This is what I was mentioning yesterday and why I think it's a Cold War and not World War III. Because all the parts of the world in the Cold War mattered and moved back and forth. So if Trump can get a win in, say, Ukraine, but Xi could get a win in, say, the Philippines, and maybe Putin could get a win in, say, Syria or whatever. I made these up, obviously. But this can work. The idea that they're evil. None of that's true. That's just stuff people say. People who hate Putin go, Putin's evil. They're not evil. They just have their own way of doing things and thinking about things that we don't agree with. And sometimes harshly and terrible. And we're the same. We do things harshly and horribly too. We all do it, right? That doesn't make it X or Y evil. It makes them apathetic to whatever we want. Which again, apathy is not evil. They're two separate things. Putin does not want to harm or kill. Neither do Americans, neither does Xi. Nobody wants to harm and kill. They want what they want. And if they have to harm and kill people, they will do it. And there's a difference between the desire to hurt and harm versus desire to get what I want at all costs. I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying if we understand it, we can then respond more effectively versus just going, well, they're just evil. It's crazy. They're psychotic. No, they're not. They have their goals and don't care how they get them. And if that means hurting, harming, killing, bombing, okay, but give us what we want. Now, if you get that, now you can deal with them better. Again, not saying they're right, not saying we shouldn't fight, but understand that just fighting isn't the answer. That's what I'm trying to say. Just fighting is not the answer because you can win the war and lose the peace. Yes. James says, the one thing we used to take from our past is that we never learned from our past. Nicely done. Nicely done. Vivek says, to stop this war and make less damaging, the West needs to end the Russia-Ukraine war on terms that makes pro-West rather than pro-China. Well, to be forward, right? What does Xi and Putin care about more than anything else? Them being able to maintain power within their own countries. So Vivek, it has to look to them like it is a win. That's the key. It doesn't have to be a win. It has to look as though it's win. I think I told you this story before, but I'll bring it up again. I was talking a month ago about the Russo-Japanese War of the early 1900s, 1904, 1905, I think, if my numbers are correct. The end of that war, it was a terrible, bloody war. And the World War I general should have learned from that war. They were actually using machine guns and trenches in that war. Most people didn't pay attention. They thought, it's the crazy Russians and the crazy Japanese. They're not like us cool Europeans, so ignore that war. That's what they basically did, even though literally they were using machine guns and trench warfare during that war. They were fighting in Manchuria at the time. Yeah, Manchuria at the time. So they're fighting there. Horrible casualties, lots of dead. The Japanese people are upset. The Battle of Tsushima happens. It's a naval battle, and the Japanese sink the Russian fleet outside of Tsushima. Shima in Japanese means island, so Tsu Island. Outside of Tsu Island, sink the Russian fleet. The Russians are pissed off. The Russians, but then go, look, let's sue for peace. The Japanese have taken massive casualties, so they want to sue for peace, and they sue for peace. They stop the war. The Russians come back and go, this is terrible terms. The Japanese foreign minister comes back, who negotiates the terms, and they're so unhappy he comes back. They murder him. I'm not joking. That's how bad it was. So when that happens, you have a problem. You can't come back from negotiating the peace and get murdered. And that's what happened. The people were like, no, it's a horrible peace. I lost my son. I lost my uncle. I lost my father. For you to do this, we're literally going to kill you in the street. And they just murdered him. That's not the way things should happen. They have to make it to where when you come back, you can declare victory, whether you can declare victory, whether it's actually a victory or not. So it doesn't matter if it is pro-West or pro-China. It matters that in China, you can say it's pro-China, and in Russia, you can say it's pro-Russian, and in the West, you can say it's pro-West. So it's all about image. It isn't about reality. I hope that makes sense at least. So yes. Joe says Trump threatened against BRIC countries not using dollars. That's correct. He was talking about the new tariffs against BRICS countries, which, you know, I get why he's doing it. I hate this idea, but I get why he's doing it. I can't. Yeah. I don't like it though. To be forward, Joe, I don't like it, but I get why, because he knows that the BRICS are made for a specific reason. They're made to try to buffer against American sanctions to the best of their ability. Sadly for them, not for us, our sanctions still do count, right? They still do count, right? It still matters. It still affects them. The Russian economy isn't doing great. It's surviving, no doubt. And to be clear, the Russians have done a decent job of buffering against the sanctions. So it isn't crazy. However, they have buffered. And the BRICS countries are trying to buffer themselves against American hegemony and American sanctions, which if I'm them, I get it. It makes sense for them. Again, I get why they're doing it. And Trump recognizes it too. He's like, I don't want that because then we don't have power. So he's threatening them, hoping they'll back off. And I think some will. So while I don't like the concept of him using sanctions for this, I do get it. And I think, Joe, to be forward, I think some countries will back off. They'll go, okay, we won't join BRICS. Saudi Arabia has hesitated. So I think Saudi Arabia is one of them that is getting worried about this and is worried that Trump will punish. And I think it is working. So yeah. So any case, Phil says, my fears that Ukraine might be 1930 Spain. But even if it's not Ukrainians fighting in Syria and Africa, it means there are elements of the Azov battalion who become U.S. trained extremists with internal operations. I think you're onto something, Phil. I agree. I think Ukraine is absolutely Spain 1930s. For those who don't know, much of the tactics used during World War II were trained in Spain. The blitzkriegs, what the Germans did, what happened in Spain in the fascist revolution of the 1930s, many of the lieutenants and captains in World War I, guys like Erwin Rommel, Heinz Guderian, von Manstein, guys like that, they fought in World War I. And they saw how bad things were and how you could maneuver and this idea of using armored warfare and air and all that stuff. The concepts all happened during World War I. And at the end of the war, some of that was being used. Well, no one had actually really done it. So they said, hey, they're fighting in Spain and they're fascists. Let's go try it. So literally they sent German aircraft mechanics, pilots, aircraft to fight in Spain and to use close air support and to do dive bombing and all those things. And they used armored cars and light armored units and lightning warfare. They used it all in Spain. And all those guys went, oh, this is brilliant, right? Heinz Guderian wrote the book Achtung Panzer, and Rommel wrote the book Attacks. These are books written on how to fight battles that they used in World War II. They wrote the books they could give to their other generals. It's one of the reasons why the Germans were so effective in World War II. I think you are correct. And right now, people are learning in Ukraine how World War III or the next modern warfare will be fought. They're learning that right now. You're correct. And then these units will all be bloodied. I know we talked about this before. The reason why North Koreans are in fighting right now is to bloody their troops so they have non-commissioned officers who have been bloodied. I know some people will say, look, training matters. It does. There is no doubt training matters. Of course it does. And there is no substitute. And this is, again, demonstrably true with the non-commissioned officer corps that has been in combat. There's no substitute. Training's awesome, and you should train people. Please, you should. Add on non-commissioned officers who've been in combat, you have a serious fighting force. You have a serious fighting force. I think you are correct. Yes. So, Andy Cooper says, nope, no domestic disturbance. Disturbance. Trump won and all lunatics with guns on his side. I think that's kind of true, AC. However, it does mean it will stay that way, right? And people were upset about this idea that I brought up. Trump's decisive victory, I think, really pushed off any domestic issues for us for at least 5 years. I agree with you. I think we've got time. But I'm talking longer term. Who knows what happens after Trump? I don't know. Do Republicans become the party of the middle class? Do they not and go back to their old ways? Do Democrats learn anything? Do they change? Does a third party have any impact whatsoever in 4 years? I don't know, right? I can't really tell that. My gut says not much will change because things don't change that much in general, but possible. So I think you're correct for at least the next 4 to 5 years, but who knows afterwards is my issue. Who knows what else is? So yes. All righty. Let's see. Mike says, I disagree with your view on Vietnam. We're in logistics phase of poly-regional wars. If America loses this, we become Brazil 1980. The world's too internet to walk away. Isolation fails. No. I'm okay. I was not clear. I should have been clearer. So let me clear this up. I don't mean walk away as in isolation. I mean walk away as in military intervention. So let me be very clear on this. We walked away from Vietnam militarily, right? But then people like literally McCain, who was held prisoner by them, went back to open up relations. So I'm not saying isolate. I'm saying stop being involved in their internal issues. Stop being involved militarily. That's what I meant. I should be clearer with that, Mike. Thank you for making me clarify. I do not mean isolate. I mean, why do we care if there's a war in insert place here? Whatever. Why are we so concerned? The only thing I'd be concerned about is, can I still get my goods around? Or is your war stopping trade? Is your war affecting other countries from having the best life they can have, right? With our goods and services. Is that happening? Maybe I'm concerned a little bit. Otherwise, I'm not. But Larry, countries might get taken over. Yes. People might die. Yes. So it's our job to make sure nobody dies. It's our job to make sure no wars happen. No, I don't agree. I know a lot of people disagree with me. They think America should be the police force. I know tons of people get mad at me when I say this. Go, no, if not America, then nobody. Oh my God. I'm not there. I'm just not there. I don't buy it. And if America pulled out of even just half of its bases, I think there's 800, 700, some huge number like that. Sake of argument, 800. Pulled out of half. Just had 400 bases. Just 400, right? To guard trade zones. Would all of a sudden America become isolated? Would become Brazil all of a sudden? I would argue the opposite. I would argue more countries would have more of a say in the world order. More countries would care more about the world order and would just lean on us all the time, right? I think more countries would be that way. And I think we'd be able to cut our own debt, cut our own spending, and make Americans better off. That's my view. I think if we keep going, we become the Brits. Remember something, for those of you who don't get this, I mean, I'm serious. I joke, but I'm serious when I say this. When the British Empire fell, the reason why we didn't have a horrible dark ages is because the British Empire had a sun. The sun was us, the American Empire. So as they walked away and the sun set on the British Empire, the sun rose on our empire. So now we took over. Okay, great. What happens when an empire falls? It becomes Britain, right? And England is now, I don't mean to be angry if you're British listening to me, but England is not a world power anymore. It just isn't. It's not a world power, right? So, I mean, it still has like weapons and stuff. It's not like it's a third world country, but it's not a world power anymore. People are like, oh my God, the Brits are mad. Whatever. No one cares, right? They're going to leave Europe. Okay, bye. Whatever. Nobody cares. So the issue here becomes, do we become that? That's my worry, that we could become that. Phil says, Larry, how much do you think the opioid crisis was because of the war in Afghanistan? The opioid crisis was because of the war in Afghanistan. I don't think it was. I mean, the opioid crisis, this is the issue, right? The opioid crisis began in the 80s and 90s in the Black communities and then went to white communities later. The war in Afghanistan didn't start till when? 2002? Is that right? 2002? So, yeah, I don't think so at all. And if anything, the opioid crisis in that time, I mean, tons of heroin was coming out of Afghanistan. The CIA made sure of that. I'm not making that up. It's just a fact, right? They made sure that tons of opioids came out of Afghanistan. Now that we've left Afghanistan, embarrassing how we left Afghanistan, and now that we've spent 20 years replacing the Taliban with a better armed and better trained Taliban, Well done, America. USA #1. Now we've done that. There's no more, not no more, but there's hardly any opioids coming out of Afghanistan anymore. So what are we getting? We get fentanyl out of China and Mexico. So I don't think so. I don't think so. So maybe. All righty. Jacob says, oh, I hope we haven't gotten to the Hunter Biden part. Who saw this coming? I did 3.9 years ago. They said they wouldn't pardon him, and so I called their BS. Look, to be forward with you, as I mentioned, I know a lot of people are mad about this. I'm seeing it on, people are mad. And I get it. I do. I want to be very clear. I get the fact that Biden basically lied to our faces. So did his press person. But yeah, like I'm shocked he lied. Yeah. It's bad. But in the overall scope of things, who cares? Right? Who cares? In the overall frame of things, who cares? Look, I'll tell you all listening right now. If I was president and my daughter got in trouble and I could pardon her, I'm pardoning her. If you don't like that, then don't vote for me president if I ever run. But I tell you right now, I'm not letting my daughter go to jail over some trumped up charges. People trying to get mad at me. Nope. I am absolutely pardoning her. Gonna happen. I tell you now, so you know in advance. So when you try to put my daughter in jail, if I ever run for anything and go, Larry shut my pardon. Yeah, he told us like years ago he was gonna, and I would pardon her off the bat. Yep, pardoned. Don't care. You can be mad at me. I guess you can impeach me, whatever. I'm not letting my daughter go to jail over some trumped up bullshit if I'm president of the United States. Not gonna happen. So just saying, I'm not surprised. And here's the part, Jacob, that bothers me most. Jacob, if he would have just said that, just said it, just immediately said, nope, that's my son. He was trying to get back to me. Don't waste your time on pardoning him. While I would have thought, wow, that's kind of messed up because you just said it like that, I would have been like, I get it. Like I would respect the truth more. I would respect the openness more versus this, I'm going to try to scam and get him out of it. And when I can't get him out of it, then pardon him. So it is kind of BS. I agree. I'm just saying in the long run, who cares? And you look, all his charges are getting dropped too. Right? All his charges are getting dropped. Am I mad at that? No. Let Hunter go. Let Trump go. Let's fix the country. This goes back to Gandhi. An eye for an eye, and we all go blind. I don't want to all go blind. I get it's unfair. I get it's wrong. I get it. I don't give a shit about your self-imposed righteousness. I don't care about your virtue signaling. The country's collapsing. People are dying everywhere. And you want to somehow put Hunter and Trump in jail. It's not going to help at all. It doesn't make anything better. It's not the system. The system is garbage already. Right? And I remember this is a true story. So I'm going to look at this. This was doing with Illinois. Illinois was figuring out that its capital punishment system was so bad that they were putting something like 20%, some huge amount, I'm making number up, so a huge amount of people, but 20% of the people on death row shouldn't be on death row. I'm making the number up, I forgot what it was, some large number, right? So for sake of argument, it's 20%. You can tell me what it was if you can look and see what it was, but whatever the number is, X percent of people were being killed by the state innocently. And there were literally people, lawyers, who argued that we should not change the system. Because if people we shouldn't go in and look for more. I'm sorry, we shouldn't go and look for more and get more people out. Because if we get more people out who are innocent, say it again, if we get more people out who are innocent, then that would break faith in the system. So innocent people should be murdered by the state so we can have faith in the system. That was a real argument. I am blown away. That is a real argument. But it was a real argument. So, yes. That's all I'm saying. Yes. So, anyway. Pinkerbell says, not being world police, that's not very empire of you. I know I am not supporting the empire. I know I'm in trouble now. Yes, I am shamed. I feel shame, Pinkerbell. I do feel shame. By the way, thank you for being a member. I do appreciate it. Yes. So, all righty. The Liberty Lady says, Liberty Lady says, Larry, every time you mention your Rumble account, at Larry Sharpe, you get a couple more followers over there. Followers can subscribe, but they pay $5 a month. They can send Rumble friends. If you guys like Rumble, head over to Rumble. If I get enough people over at Rumble, I might do some Rumble only stuff. When I do Rumble stuff, I don't have to talk like baby talk like I have to do here on YouTube. Like YouTube, I have to talk like a child because YouTube thinks we're all kids. And if we don't say anything, if I say anything that could be bad, they punish me like a bad child. That's what YouTube does. Rumble doesn't care. So yes, if you want to head over to Rumble, I do watch Rumble also. So yes, and that Liberty Lady is over there. She is monitoring Rumble as Missy monitors YouTube. That Liberty Lady D monitors Rumble. So there we go. So see, Joe knows though. He says, but Larry, they'll welcome us like liberators. Of course they will. That happens every time except, oh wait, never. Yeah, except never. 100%. Yes, 100%. Yes. All righty. Bobby Mack says, we tried to put them under. What was the meaning of the reset button Hillary was suggesting? The reset button. Oh, the Soviets. Yes, I'm sorry. No, was Hillary even this failure was Bush Sr., right? Bush Sr. This isn't Hillary's issue. This happened way before that, Bobby. I'm not blaming Hillary for that. I don't know if Hillary even cared either way. I don't think that was. I'm not blaming Hillary for this at all. We lost the Cold War, Bush and Clinton, not Hillary, Bill, right? That's when we lost the Cold War, specifically the first Bush. The first Bush completely. He's an ex-CIA guy. He didn't want to stop that. He didn't want to end that. So specifically the first Bush and then Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the one who had the best chance of fixing it, and he dropped the ball completely on it. So I don't know. I mean, look, I think Hillary might have had a chance at doing it when she was under Obama. It was a chance that she could have done it. But I don't think Hillary wanted to either. Hillary was the one saying that Putin's evil. He's a killer. She was saying all that kind of stuff, right? She was being just as aggressive. And look, I'm not saying she's not right in that regard. What I'm saying is, if you're a diplomat, which she was Secretary of State, you probably shouldn't say it like that, right? You probably should keep that to yourself, right? I mean, if I want you to, be my friend or do a business deal with me or whatever, I want you to do a business deal with me. I want you to, join a company with me and build something together. I probably shouldn't call you names, publicly at least. If I do, maybe behind your back, in front of, maybe. But if I'm going to publicly call you names, you're probably not going to do business with me, right? I mean, yeah. So I don't think she did a good job of it. I don't think Obama did a good job of it either in that regard. However, I don't blame them, right? This should have been done way before they came into power. This should have been done in the early 90s. I do not think that the first Bush was good at making this work. And I think Clinton failed completely. Bill Clinton, not Hillary Clinton, failed completely at this. Both of them did a bad job. And then when George H.W. Bush got in, I think he tried to. He was like, I see goodness in his eyes or whatever, that thing he said. I look into his soul, whatever he said, that kind of thing. But I think at that point, it's too late, right? At that point, Bobby, I think it's too late. You've already lost the window to win the peace. The window had to be first Bush, Bill Clinton. That was the window. And we dropped the ball on that one. That's what I would say. And then things just got worse afterwards. So I hope that answers your question at least. I do think people wanted to reset. I don't think Putin wasn't the guy to reset with, if that makes any sense, right? If you're going to reset, it probably wasn't with Putin. That was the wrong guy to reset with. You should have reset before Putin even got into charge, if you could have, right? Or at least at the beginning, before he had really solidified his power, right? Maybe then, before he really solidified his power, maybe you could have. Anyway, my point being that the window was lost. So yes. The anti-corporatist says, we seem oddly committed to state boundaries, but if you invade a neighbor, you're not wrong on that one. AC goes on to, the Russians I have known are very fatalistic. I've met many with a dark cloud. I've met many Russians here in New York, and many of them have a dark cloud over their heads. I agree. They're not eternal optimists like most Americans were. There is a joke that many Europeans, and particularly Eastern Europeans, will say how they know if you're an American tourist. As you're walking around their town, you're smiling. If you know any people from Europe who will tell you that, they'll say, yeah, if you know an American tourist, he's smiling. Yeah, no one else is smiling, just the American. That's the only one smiling. That's how you know. So I think you have a point there. Yes. Pickerbell says, self-interested, not evil. Evil is a nebulous moral concept. Self-interested is concrete and material. My point exactly, Pinkerbell. Thank you. My point exactly. How, if someone's actually evil, why would I negotiate with them? Your point's, why would I? I must destroy them. They're evil. You're correct. But if they're self-interested, at least now I have a way of doing something. I could understand how to push their button, understand where to stop, know what to push, what not to push, what to offer, what not, what to offer, what's a stick and what's a carrot. I now know those things. If I get that, they're evil. Why would I negotiate? And this is the reason why we do this. This is why we say one-word story. This is why so many more people die. This is the reason. You can't negotiate with terrorists. How insanely stupid is that idea? How insanely stupid is that idea? And we love it. Oh my God, we say it all the time. So many conservatives don't negotiate with terrorists. Then you're an idiot and you want people to die because you want to be righteous. I'm a conservative and I just want to yell. Look, conservatives can be smart. When they say that, they're being dumb. That's what they just say. Negotiate with who? If someone's got a gun to your head, negotiate. It's fine. You can have a conversation. You should talk to your enemies always. And this is the one I'll bring up, the one I bring up often. I'll bring this up again. You might go live, but some people are horrible. Like the Nazis are horrible. Why would you negotiate with Nazis? I'll tell you why. We should have. Yes, Larry, you would talk to Hitler? Yes, we should have. We stopped because of FDR's stupid, insanely stupid, unconditional surrender, which he just made up and nobody else wanted. The Germans tried to kill Hitler 44 or 43 times, and they couldn't for many reasons. But one of them is people wouldn't jump on board. The German staff wouldn't jump on board. Why? Because there was no way to negotiate peace. Yes. Like we should have had peace with them. Yes, we should have told them, you give us the H-man and X number of top guys, whatever it is, you give us this, you surrender these people to us, to the Allies, and we'll negotiate peace. We're going to keep fighting until you do that. We're going to keep bombing and fighting you. We're not going to stop fighting. But if you do this, if you say, look, we want to stop fighting, here's all of them. Take all of them. Can we negotiate peace? You have to remove yourself from all the countries you invaded. You have to pay reparations, whatever. But yes, we can do it. And I go, Larry, that's horrible. Okay. What if we had done that? And in 1944, all of the German high command knew the war was over and they were going to lose. I'm not making that up. Do your own homework. They all knew by 1944, the war was over and they were going to lose. They all knew that. Everyone in the German high command knew that. What if we had said, give us all your leaders. We can talk peace. Head back to your borders, remove your troops, we'll talk peace. If you just said that, they would have offed them. And the last year of the war, all those people who died wouldn't have died. You know what year the most Americans died in Europe? 1945. That was the highest casualty rate of Americans in World War II in Europe. 1945. Highest casualty rate. I think in Asia too, 1945. What if we could have ended that war a year early? All those Americans don't die. How about all the Jews who were killed in the camps last year of the war, end of 44? They don't die. How about the Russians, the Germans, the French, the Brits, the Japanese, Chinese? All those people who died don't die because we say, let's talk peace. But no righteousness and whatever. Not just that, maybe there is no, if we do it the right way, maybe there's no division of Germany. Maybe there's no Cold War. Maybe we don't have to drop the bomb. Maybe there's no nuclear holocaust in Japan. All of that goes away. Well, they were never going to surrender. A lie. Rudolf Hess, literally, a German, parachuted his way into Britain to try to talk peace. Check Rudolf Hess. Google him now. Rudolf Hess literally parachuted into Britain to try to talk peace. The Japanese, because they couldn't talk to us, went to Stalin to talk for peace. The Japanese went to Stalin and said, can we have some peace? And Stalin said, oh, you guys are weak? Then Stalin invaded Manchuria. Stalin took their peace and said, oh, you guys are weak. I know how weak you were. I'm going to declare war on Japan. So then he declared war on Japan and invaded Manchuria. And that's how you have North-South Korea. We have North Korea now and South Korea now because Russia invaded. Why? Because we wouldn't talk peace to the Japanese. That's the reason. So your point, I went long, I know, in this, Pinkerbell, but your point's very valid, Pinkerbell. We should understand, most people are not evil. They are self-interested, often apathetic. That's true, and don't care who they hurt or who they harm. But if we know what changes, why were they so worried about surrendering? Because they thought that if they surrendered, we would kill their emperor and remove their emperor. Well, they would do that, so they assumed that. Of course they did. They thought that was going to happen. We'll fight to the death then. We kept their emperor anyway. We could have said, you surrender, remove all your troops from all these places. You will pay a price, but you can keep your emperor. They've been like, okay, deal, okay. Because in 1944, they all knew the war was over also. All of them knew. In 1944, everybody knew the war was over. Everybody knew the war was over. And if you think that's not true, you haven't done your homework. Do your homework. That's true. So yes, that's the piece I want to make sure we understand. We should always talk to them. All right. Let me grab a couple of them. You guys give me a couple of things. Let me grab from Texas Spy Historian. Thank you for the $1 over at Rumble. He says, I bragged about you today to my new amphibious assault marine neighbor. He's still active, but has moved into my neighborhood. Oh, that's great. He's a LAAV, is that right? LAAV, yes. I see that all the time. So I appreciate that. Another one, here's another $1. Just got my retired B&Cs redone. I was, 97 Bravo. Oh, you were in Army. I was helping Larry in New York when I was at West Point. Yes, Sergeant First Class retired. Oh, very good. Thank you. That appreciate that. Yes. So SFC, Sergeant First Class. Yes, which is an E7 in the Army, right? E7, equivalent of a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps. I'm pretty sure that's true. So yes, I appreciate that. Thank you for that, my friend. I do appreciate it. Joseph says, thank you for the $10. Since we're an empire, we only have emperors now. Hoku was Exhibit A. Yes. Larry, you've been running for the wrong position. You need to run for emperor now. That's my problem, Joseph. I'm running for the wrong. I got to run for emperor. That's my problem. I'm sitting there running for governor. Idiot I am. Okay. Actually, remember the states, there's a difference between a king and an emperor, for those you don't know. A king runs one country. An emperor runs multiple. That is why she is a queen, not an emperor. However, our president is an emperor of the empire. So yes, minor distinction between the two. But yes, running in New York, you are simply a regular monarch. You are just a queen or a king. In this case, we have a queen. Prior to that, we had a king. All hail. Queen Kathy, first of her name. Yes. All right, let me keep grabbing here if I could. All righty. Victor says, you can win the war and still lose the peace, which we have done many times. Winning the peace is more important. It is. There was a movie years ago. Oh my God, it's got to be 50 years ago or more. It's a comedy based upon a small made-up country in Europe, and they're in trouble. And they think, okay, how do we fix our country? And they go, wait a minute. If we go to war against America and then we surrender, they'll rebuild our country. We can win the peace. So they have an army of 3 guys or whatever it is. I forgot that. This is years ago. 3 guys. And they decide we're going to go invade America with 3 dudes. And then we'll go to war. They'll beat us and then rebuild the country. Brilliant. That's winning the peace. So yes, you can win a war and lose a peace. And you can lose a war and win a peace. You can. Think about the French. They lost World War II. Boy, did they win that peace. Well done, France. Well done, France. France put in the least and got the most. That's a way of winning the peace. Yes, 100%. All right. So we can go down here. The Andy Cooper says it was the end of trench warfare. I'm not sure where that comes from. Do you mean World War I was the end of trench warfare? I'm not sure. Trench warfare actually began during our Civil War, 1860 to 1864. We started to dig in trenches then. We began then. Is when it really began a thing. And we started seeing the interest of that. And then the machine gun, obviously, the Gatling gun, began actually kind of during our war. But again, Europeans thought, crazy Americans, it's not like us. These guys don't understand us. We're different, right? It's not how it works. Did not want to hear it at all. But then when there was a war with a European power, the Russians, well, they're the backward Russians and the backward Japanese. So clearly that can't be true. And they had more machine guns, right? This is 1903, 1904, 1905. They had more machine guns and more trenches. So literally, it's a true story. When the French first came into war in 1914, there were still French units that were wearing red trousers. I'm not kidding. Look it up if you think I'm making this up. They were still wearing red trousers. They thought it was Napoleon. They thought it was the Napoleonic War. They thought that. We Napoleon. We're going to go fight the Prussians. They thought that. They had the red trousers on, and they're getting all in line, right? Ready to march out with the bayonets coming out against machine guns. That's a real thing that actually happened. So, yeah, there's a story about the Poles, which is unfair to the Poles. So I'm beating the Frenchies up. I'm gonna validate the Poles. During World War II, there is a photo of Polish cavalry charging German tanks, and they were like, "See the stupid Poles? They're attacking the armor with horses and cavalry." Not accurate. They were surrounded. The Germans were so fast with their lightning warfare, they were surrounding pockets. And the Poles were trying to do a breakout. And the only way they could break out, and the only thing to have, was a cavalry unit. So they sacrificed their cavalry unit in an attempt to break out of a German encirclement. So the Poles weren't stupid. They were desperate because they were being slaughtered quickly by German armor units. So the cavalry charge was not stupidity. It was desperately trying to break out of an encirclement. So I will give the Poles some respect that they deserve and hammer the French a little bit. Anyway, just my point. So, yes. All righty. I hope that was, I went a bit long on that one. But yes, and let me keep going with the trench warfare. Trench warfare has returned. People thought Ukraine was going to be World War III. It's World War I. Trench warfare has returned. This is all about trench warfare. Trenches are everything. If you don't have trenches in modern day warfare, you're going to be trenches and minefields is what modern day warfare is about now. Modern day massive warfare, right? Modern day warfare for Americans is insurgency fighting, right? Fighting insurgents, urban warfare, things like that. That's modern day American fighting from the past 20 years. But today's war in Ukraine, and I'm going to assume that may wind up happening in the Middle East if we go that route, is going to be heavily trench warfare. Trench warfare. Close air support is no longer aircraft. Close air support is now drones. That has changed completely also. Aircraft has changed tremendously. Artillery has changed tremendously. It's much more about missiles and drones and trenches. And you keep people in trenches sometimes, and the Ukrainians find this out horribly, just to absorb artillery. I know that sounds terrible saying it, but sadly it is true. As I told you before, the Ukrainians kind of have, and the Russians too, to a certain extent, you kind of want them having two separate armies. And some of you are going to hate this, but I'm just going to be very forward. The reality of it is that if you have your heavily trained, heavily, experienced troops mount offensives, they're the ones who make the attack. They're the ones who navigate minefields. They're the ones who move into cities. They're the ones who follow in behind drone strikes, that kind of thing, right? They take casualties, but they're bloodied and they fight. Once you've captured it, you remove those units. And you then put in your reserve units who now hold the ground while the enemy counterattacks and bombs them and there's artillery shells and blows them to pieces with drones. You don't want your heavily trained units to do that. So you put in cannon fodder. Back in the day, cannon fodder was what charged, right? Your cannon fodder was the attack. And that's what it used to be. Now your cannon fodder sits in the trenches and gets blown up. And the best units attack and then withdraw completely. Or you do what some of the Russians have done, which is you empty your prisons. And you give your prisoners, you say, if you spend 2 years in the military, you're pardoned. And you make them your attack assault troops in towns. Because in towns and cities, it's horrible. Casualty rates are insanely high. So you put your prisoners in there. The Russians have done that also. Just shoving the Wagner group is heavily, prisons. They throw them in there. And look, if you're a prisoner and you're sitting in a Russian prison, and your option is stay in a Russian prison, whoever knows how long, whenever, maybe you'll get out, maybe you won't. Or see if you can survive in a combat zone for 2 years and you're free. I get why you would go into a combat zone. I get it. I get it completely. So yes. Anyway. All righty. Let me keep going down this, guys. I appreciate this. All righty. Peekaboo says, I wouldn't underestimate how much some people are itching for an excuse to pop off. Not sure. Not sure. I feel like a lot of people are able to deal with it online more than anything else. So yes. Joseph says, part of the middle class, lol, we live by the golden rule. He with the gold makes rules. Yes, but to be forward, if they believed there was money in becoming a part of the middle class, they might, right? If they believed it. And if they were able to somehow fight the Republican establishment, which is not the part of the middle class at all, they're nowhere near it, right? If they're able to do both, it could happen. I don't know. I think it's possible. The AC says, I would think the right-wing populists will revolt against some of Trump's policies and personnel, but they all love him too much. Yeah, and they like, this is the thing, AC, you have a very valid point here. The Republican establishment, while they hate a lot of his policies, love the fact that he's given them power again, right? It looked, and obviously it was untrue, but it looked like when Obama came into power, he had made this massive coalition of America, and this was the new Democratic Party, and Jesus had come, and everything was good, and Republicans were finished. That's how it looked back in 2008, 2009. A lot of people thought that. They're like, oh my God, how can Republicans ever respond to this? It's over. Obama is the new everything. And then he won in 2012. Oh my God, he's the greatest thing in the world. Look at him. Clearly that was not true. But I think a lot of people believe that. And then Trump comes in and goes, no, I got you. I'm taking all of it. I'm taking it all. I got it all. I'm the new guy. And a lot of Republicans are like, you know what? If this is how we get it, you know what? I'm okay with it. So I think some of them just want the power. So I think they'll shut up because they like being in charge. And Trump is giving some of the old guard positions. You see it. He's giving Rubio a position. He's an old guard. So he's giving some old guard people positions. And they're like, okay, so I get the position. Maybe I'll shut up. Maybe I'll be quiet. So that's what I think. The AC goes on to say, by the way, AC, thank you for being a member. But I would think they would go as a militia counter-protesting, a la Kyle. I don't think that. When there is some type of internal disruption in America, I don't think it will be individual-based. It'll be small unit-based. It'll be small unit-based. How do I know that? J, day after 5. I don't want to get canceled. J, day after 5, right? I think that showed that individual stuff would never happen again. Because all it does is it lets the establishment know who are the potential bad guys. They put them all in jail and now watch them. It won't be that way. If it happens again, it won't be for several years. It'll be small units. And odds are it'll also not just be militia, but it might also be reserve units. And how we'll know, how we, the individual people, will know that we are in the middle of the civil strife I speak of, is when the governors call out their reserves, when they call out the National Guard to put things down, the National Guard units will not respond. Whenever that happens, that could be 5 years from now, 10 years, whenever that happens, that's when you will know. When they call up Unit X from this fort, Unit Y from this area, and they don't respond, that's when it's happening. Because that means those units have decided they're not fighting for the government anymore. They're done. When that happens, when it's a unit of 200 people and 20 show up and no officers. Now you know it. That's when we know we're in civil strife. That's how it will look. So for those who want to know what's the sign, that's the sign. The sign is when they don't show up. That's the sign. So yes. Anyway, all righty. Grab a couple more of these if I can. I do appreciate all these, by the way. Roy says 100% isolation fails. Agreed. Deterrence worked if it's backed by military and economic strength. The same business leaders who would have no compunction about funding war won't if their bottom line hurts. I'm agreed. This goes right to what Joseph says, military-industrial complex, rinse, repeat. What most people don't get is that over 50% of manufacturing in America is somehow tied to the military-industrial complex. That's not of the economy, of manufacturing. Manufacturing is a smaller part of our economy. We're a heavily service-based economy. But when it comes to manufacturing, about 50% is somehow connected to the military-industrial complex. Less than 10% is like actual bombs and guns and stuff, right? That's less than 10%. But about 50% is somehow connected to it, whether it's computer chips or food or uniforms or boots or whatever it might be, right? It's that kind of thing. So yeah, there are a lot. It's a lot. And look, if my bottom line is I make tons of money because I'm whatever, funding the military industrial complex. I don't want it to stop at all. John says, I agree absolutely that we should not be the world police. It costs tons of money and we are bad at it. Yeah, but who was good at it, right? So yeah. Kentucky says, I'm conflicted on whether we should never intervene, ever. This is my area of expertise at all, so miss listening. I'm not saying forever. I'm not saying never. What I'm saying is, does it directly affect us? Is it obvious? And number one, does it directly and obviously affect us? Right? Like they're going to invade or we're next on the left. Like it's obvious, not maybe, they might, they could. Nope, that's not good enough for me. And second, we declare war. Will Congress and people go, we can't declare war if it's not a country? Yes, we can. And we've done it before. And the example I always give is the Barbary pirates. Back in the 1800s, when we were trying to sell goods into the Mediterranean, the Barbary pirates, they were literally taking over our ships, capturing our sailors, whatever, and we declared war on the Barbary pirates. And we built a navy and we blew them up and Marines landed from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. So Tripoli, Libya, where we landed and we captured Tripoli, which was their base. They were the Barbary pirates were based out of Tripoli. That's where that song comes from, the Marines hymn. The Marines were on those ships that we built and commissioned, went there, blew the Barbary pirates up, and the Marines invaded Tripoli and took Tripoli. And that ended the Barbary pirates. So yes. So you might go, well, what about, the Houthi rebels? Declare war on Houthi rebels. I don't mind. Invade, take them out, occupy. It's a war. I'm okay with that if it directly, and that does really affect us. They're literally bombing our shipping. I'm okay with that. Declare war on the Houthi rebels, send the Marines and the Navy, get rid of them. I don't have a problem with that. But I have a problem where it's like, well, it's democracy or whatever we say it is. It's sovereignty of a nation, which to AC's point is whenever we decide that matters. No. Are they blowing up U.S. shipping? Are they crushing? Okay, do something. I don't have a problem with that. And make Congress declare war. Because Congress has to take responsibility for the young men and women they are sending to die who are in their constituencies. They must take responsibility for that. And if Congress can't say, yes, I am prepared to send Marines and sailors to die in the Red Sea or wherever, I'm prepared to, then we don't send them. Then don't send them. But you've got to be prepared to say that. And the president then should, okay, Congress has declared war. I will execute that war and I will crush the Houthi rebels if I have to invade, bomb, occupy, whatever's required. We've declared war on them until they surrender. And if they won't surrender, we kill all of them until they don't surrender. We execute the war until the threat is removed, whatever that takes. And what has to happen is it must be against us and Congress must declare war. If those two things don't happen, we should not intervene. That's it. And authorization of use of force is bullshit. AUMF is total bullshit. That's not in the Constitution. We made that up. Declare war or don't. And the government and the president should never be just going, well, it's American interest, so I invade. No. It's NATO, so I invade. No. I'm met. No. Directly affecting Americans and their property or lives, and Congress declares war, or no. Done. Congress needs to take responsibility for sending our kids to die. Take responsibility for doing it, or don't do it. Or don't do it. You got to vote for it or not. And use of force, no. Declare war or not. Because use of force, we're still using the use of force from 9/11. I'm not joking. We're still using that to fight in Syria. That's why we're in Syria. From the AUMF we used back 3 years ago, we're still using that. I'm not making that up. That's true. That's what validates us in Syria. Who did we declare war in Syria against? Nobody. We didn't declare war. We just said, government, he can use force against stuff for reasons, and now we're good. Whatever he just calls terrorism. That's where we are right now. No, Kintsugi. No. Has to be, affects us directly. Congress must declare war. There must be an enemy that we have to destroy. If you're telling me Assad's the evilest guy in the world and we got to get rid of him or he's going to kill a bunch of Americans, then declare war against his regime. Declare war against the country. I don't care. Declare war. Don't just let the president do whatever he wants. So yes, I'm sorry, I keep talking about this. So yes. All right, Joseph, thank you for being a member. Goes on to say, it's like you always say, Larry, those billions and trillions of dollars in contracts don't just disappear. How can you ever abate this economic powerhouse? It's not easy. Yes. Yes. Juan, how are you, my friend? Unfortunately, too many Americans believe that the USA is not being involved caused both World War I and World War II. Sad they don't see the parallel of the USA with Rome and the British Empire. Let's be clear. And some of you will be angry about this, but it's true. Demonstrably true. World War II, the way it happened, is directly America's fault. Let me say it again. You don't think I'm changing? World War II, the way it happened, is directly America's fault. Not kind of, directly. World War I should have been won by Imperial Germany, not Nazi Germany, Imperial Germany. They should have won it. No doubt. The only reason why they lost is because America got involved. If America doesn't get involved, they win. Germany beat the Russians on the Eastern Front. They won that war. It was the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk actually ended that war. The Russians surrendered to the Germans. The Germans won that war. If America hadn't jumped in, the French military in 1917 was in complete disarray. It was in mutiny. Literally, the Germans could have just walked to Paris. Do your homework. They'll make it. It's absolutely true. The Germans in 1917, if they wanted to, could have just got up and walked to Paris. And the French army was in total disarray. It was in utter mutiny. They had to bring in old generals who were like in their 70s and 80s that some of the men loved to come in and fix the military. It was devastated. The French were finished. They were done. The Brits were done. If it wasn't for the Americans getting involved, if it wasn't for that, the Germans would have won World War I. Okay, why do I care? If the Germans win World War I, there's no Nazi party. It doesn't exist. That happened because of the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler wouldn't have been mad and angry. He would have been part of the victorious German army that he was fighting in World War I. Maybe he would have went off and become an artist and painted some buildings or something. There might have been some other war. I don't know. Who knows what could have happened? But as we know, World War II does not happen. Doesn't happen. Imperial Germany dominates Europe after 1918. That's what would have happened. We could have just let it happen. Oh my God, it would have been horrible. Why? Were Imperial Germans any worse than Imperial French or Imperial Russians or Imperial Austrians or Imperial Italians or whatever? No, they were just like the rest of Europeans. Were they more anti-Semitic? They weren't more anti-Semitic. They weren't more anti-Semitic. In fact, if you were in Germany in 1913 and you said, hey, do you know something? 30 years from now, Germans, you'll be systematically rounding up your Jewish population and murdering them all, millions of them. They would have laughed at you. Us? We're Germans. We don't do that. There were tons of German Jews. Marx. I mean, tons of them, right? They never thought that. They would have thought you were crazy. Clearly that was true, but they thought you were crazy. That would never happen. Now, if you just said it in Russia, they'd have believed you. If you just said, yeah, Russia, they're going to be rounding them up and killing Jews in Russia, they'd be like, yeah, I see it. Russia was far more anti-Semitic than the Germans were in the 1910s and 20s. Far more, not even close, far more. Hundreds of thousands of German Jews fought in World War I. Hundreds of thousands of them. They fought as loyal Germans. It wasn't a thing. So you are correct. If America had kept out of World War I and the German Empire win, Germany would have become some type of democracy, whatever would have happened. So would the Russians probably in some way, because the Germans were anti-communist. The Germans probably would have stopped the Russians from becoming communist. They could have. It might have been a Russian-German war in the future. Maybe. Who knows? The French would have still been whatever they are. Brits would have been whatever they are too. So yeah, 100% true. There was no reason for us to be involved in World War I whatsoever. She left it alone. I don't know what would have happened, but it wouldn't have been World War II. And while there may have been a Jewish Holocaust in maybe Russia, because the Russians were very anti-Semitic, there would not have been a German Holocaust. That would not have happened. There wouldn't have been a Nazi party. That would not have existed in Germany. There would have been something else, whatever that thing is. They would have been Imperial Germans, right? They'd probably have a Kaiser right now. They'd probably have a parliamentary monarchy like the Brits right now. There'd still be a German Kaiser, and they have like the the Bundestag or whatever they have, the Reichstag, whatever they would have, and that'd be it. Anyway, I yapped away. Yes, we didn't need to be involved in World War I, and we started World War II with the Chinese by the Japanese by caring about the Chinese. Yeah, but people don't talk about that either. We literally had a horrible relationship with the Japanese because we were mad because they were fighting in China. We should let them fight in China. Let them do their own thing. Chinese were fighting their own civil war. Let them fight. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. But we didn't. We had to get involved because FDR had to get involved. He was heavily anti-Japanese. He hated Asians. He was a blatant racist, and he decided he was going to. He actually made rules where Japanese couldn't come to America. Anti-immigration rules against Japanese. Trade embargo them. All types of things against the Japanese. Yes. And in my opinion, I don't have data, but in my opinion, he knew Pearl Harbor was going to happen and did nothing because he was happy to get involved in war. That's why he put them all in, and he put all the Japanese in internment camps. That's all FDR, the guy that we love so much, and why he was a terrible president. I keep telling you some reason why he's a terrible president. People love him. He's a terrible president in many ways. So anyway, you got me going. I apologize for that. Yes. All righty. All right. Joseph says, you should be queen of everything, Kintsugi. Oh, there we go. Look at that. I love that. You already said. I love that. Easy day. Yes. All right. Roy goes on to say, wasn't that long ago that Britain was the biggest, most powerful empire in history, responsible for naming and running half the world? True. There was a 40% of the world. Is that right? Was British at one point? I think that's correct. So, yes. All righty. Let's see here if I can work on a couple more of these. Joe says, what? Larry would not waste taxpayer dollars by pardoning his daughter for victimless crimes? I'd already vote for you. Now you don't have to convince me further, Larry. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Yes. The anti-corporate, he should pardon everyone, resign and have Harris pardon him. I'll tell you what I really think should have happened. In my perfect world, AC. This is my fantasy. Never going to happen. My perfect world. In my perfect world, they agree to pardon each other. I mentioned this, I think it was last night. Imagine if they had done that. Imagine if Trump goes, hey, look, let me wrap the pardon for your kid right now. I'll pardon your kid. I'll pardon Hunter. Do me a favor. Tell Kathy Hochul to pardon me. And Biden goes, deal. I'm writing a check to do what I say. I will pressure Hochul into pardoning you. Because Trump's charges are state while Hunter's are federal, right? So deal. I will have Hochul pardon you. You pardon my son. Imagine what a handshake that is to the country, right? Fine. Let's get past this. Try to fix things. But that's my fantasy. That was never going to happen, AC. That's what I wish would have happened, right? That's what I wish would have happened. Joseph says, you've been in the Gandhi trip. I love it. One of my favorite movies is the movie Gandhi. It's one of my favorite movies. I do love that. Gandhi was by no means perfect, and no one is. But again, I judge people by their peer group, not by today's standards, right? Gandhi was asked an important question, and I love his answer to this question. He was asked by a reporter during World War II. He said, they said, can you use your non-violent ideas against someone like a Hitler? How could you do that, right? He'll just kill you, right? And his answer was, not without defeats. You will have many defeats. He goes, but in your war with Hitler, with bombs and guns, don't you have defeats? And she was like, damn, we do. We lose lots of battles. Yes, he's the same way. Because we'll have defeats, lots of them. We'll have casualties, lots of them. You will have casualties as you're fighting the Germans. We would have casualties. Yes, we're going to have casualties. We're going to lose people. This is a war. But he was like, I accept it. That's how it works. So I think about that. He beat the greatest empire at the time of the world. And it was some dude in a loincloth. Pretty impressive. That's all I'm saying. Pretty impressive. So yes. All righty. The AC goes on to say, Harris kept people on death row who have evidence proving their innocence. Yes, because she's by the system. Right? Someone asked me, how do I know that Democratic Party is establishment? This is the issue. Democratic Party has become the establishment party. And to be forward, it used to be the Republican Party. The Republican Party used to be the establishment party. It's changed. Now, don't get me wrong. All of the people at the top are all still establishment, right? The top of both parties is still establishment. I'm talking about the average person, right? Look at what most Democrats think of as valuable. They look at things like, well, the person has credentials. The person has, relevant experience in that job. The person has education, things that are all important to the establishment. When Republicans think he was successful, that's it. That's it. He won. That's it. The credentials don't matter. Only the outcome matters. It's a difference in how people are thinking now. And that wasn't true years ago. That has changed. So yes. Missy says, please make sure you are subscribed. YT has been subscribing people. Unsubscribing, it has, it's true. Guys, if you have not, click the button known as like. Please do so now. It does matter. Please keep sharing this. Put this in the Facebook groups if you can. Share us on Twitter. Wherever you can share it, please share it. If you have not subscribed, you're not sure, please subscribe. Click that button notification. It does matter. Love super chats. If you want to super chat me, it goes right to the front, right? I'm trying to get a lot of interaction, as you can see, to the best of my ability. I know I'm behind on certain things, but I want to give you guys ability to have a conversation back and forth to the best of my ability. If you want to become a member, please do so. Remember, I will have another members show coming up in about 2 weeks, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, another one coming up. So right before Christmas, probably. So we'll have that also happen. So please do all those things if you could. Click the buttons that matter. Join if you can join. All those things are important if you can do so. So yes, there we go. All righty. If I'm gonna keep it down here. The Sharpe Empire has a nice ring to it. Thank you, Johnson. I appreciate that. Sharpe Empire. I like that, of course. Yes. Let's see if I can do this here. Pickerbell says, realistically, you don't need to negotiate peace with allies. Definitionally, peace is negotiated with enemies. Thought terminating cliches manufacture consent for endless wars. Yeah, thought terminating cliches manufacture consent for endless wars. Yes, absolutely true. Yes, 100%. Right? I want to end the war and stop the death. That's the part that drives me crazy. She goes on to say, they're just evil or they hate us for our freedom. Pinkabell, that drove me crazy. They hate us for our freedom. And people bought that garbage. They still do. They still buy it. Like somebody in, the Middle East gets up and goes, oh, good this morning. Man, damn Americans and their freedom. I'm going to go get them. None of them say that ever. That's never happened ever. They don't care. They hate us because we bombed them. That's why they hate us, because we intervene in their worlds. And we think we have to fix things. We don't. Look, the example I'll give you is Germany. 89, 90? Germany reunites. Well, we have to figure out how to reunite Germany. No, we don't. It's Germany. Let them figure it out. And if they screw it up, okay, it's Germans who will do their own thing and they will unite their own country the way they want to. And if they screw it up, it's their problem that they will fix in their own way. Period. That's how it works. We screwed up reuniting our country after the Civil War. And guess what? It was our country and we screwed it up and it's our job. We had to deal with that our own way. We have wanted some other country to come in and go, no. This is how Reconstruction should work. No. Same thing. Korea, if they ever reunite Korea, it's not our job to reunite Korea. It's Koreans' job to reunite their own country as they see fit. They don't hate us for our freedom. They hate us because we intervene. They hate us because we bombed them. They hate us because we just affect their elections. They hate us for all those things, right? That's the part I can't stand. So, yes. All righty. Kintsugi says, I guess I disagree in a general sense about evil being a nebulous concept, but people do throw the word around too much. It can be hyperbolic. Generally speaking, there are some exceptions to this. Generally speaking, people aren't evil. Actions can be evil. Generally speaking, there are some exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, the average person can do an evil act. Doesn't mean they're evil. That makes sense. Usually, the person who does the evil act has somehow in their mind validated their bad action, right? I did it because there was a reason behind it. And this goes back to Pinkerbell's piece. If I can just go, they're just evil. If I then act evil in response to evil, it's okay, right? Because that person was evil. So it becomes okay. So again, general rule, there are some exceptions. You can define exceptions, but generally speaking, the average person can do an evil thing, but generally isn't evil. And then they validate their actions. Most people who do bad things don't think they're doing bad things. They think that things are okay because they have some reason, that kind of thing. So yes. Phil says, what's crazy is World War II started with the premise of freedom from Poland. They should have one over love for another. Also true. Yes. Not wrong on that one at all. So yes. All righty. The AC says, once we got accurate artillery and air assets, trenches became relevant. They are still relevant, my friend. They are still relevant. He goes on to say tunnels now. Yes, tunnels, but tunnels are trenches too, right? All All their tunnels are is covered trenches. That's all they really are. They're covered trenches. And they try to cover them in a way that will stop drone strikes, right? The goal is to stop drone strikes. When you look at the old trenches from World War I, they were trenches, but then there were bunkers inside, tunnels and bunkers inside. Same thing. Tunnels moving back and forth, bunkers, right? So for those of you who don't know, AC probably knows this. When artillery strikes would happen, initially, how it initially did it early on in World War I, they would bombard the trenches, trying to destroy the trenches and blow things up, right? Of course, heavy bombardment. Bombardment weren't as accurate as it is now, but they would still do it massive. What would happen? The troops wouldn't sit in the trenches. That's like TV stuff. They wouldn't be in trenches. They'd go into bunkers while the bombardment hit. When the bombardment ended, they would then get back to the trenches so they could fire again. The goal was, they thought it was called a creeping bombardment? I forgot what the name of it. There was a way where they would bombard, and as they would bombard, the troops would try to get behind the bombardment as fast as they possibly can. So before the troops would get back into the trenches, you could mount the offensive. That began to happen a little bit better with coordination at the end of World War I. But it has come right back. It was the end of trenches until 2020 or whenever, right? It was in the trenches. But trenches have come back. And they've come back because mostly, more than anything else, because of two things. Drones and satellites. Why those two? Because reconnaissance is so perfect that you can no longer hide maneuver. That's the reason why trenches now work again. World War II was very easy to hide maneuver. Even relatively Korea and Vietnam. You could hide your units very easily. You could hide your maneuver, right? So you could use surprise. Now they see everything. There are now attacks now that would have been with a division, 10, 15,000 people that are now brigade. So we're talking 800 people, 900 people. Where used to be 15,000, 10,000. Why? You put 10,000 people together, they get destroyed. Blown up by drones, blown up by bombs, blown up by missiles, destroyed by artillery. You can't put them together because they can see it. So that's why this has changed. We're back to trench warfare because you can't maneuver effectively. Not just that, you can set up minefields without having to set up minefields. What does that mean? And back in the day, you had to dig holes and set minefields. Now you can fire artillery. Artillery lands, drops minefield. So now you have a minefield that you can drop from a distance. That didn't happen before. So you have a massive minefield. You can just drop out, and I can see all your maneuvering. I can't, the reason why that in the Ukrainian war, towns, and they talk so much about little towns and little villages. Why do they matter so much, right? Back in the day, you would walk right through a town or a village. Now it's critical. Everyone's critical. Why? Because there's literally buildings over that you can hide people and things and stuff in that you can't see. That's the reason why even there's a small village. I'm not joking. 13 houses. They're happy to take it. Just take it because I could put something in there that the enemy can't see. And that's how I can make an attack. So, and now the next thing is motorcycles are back. I know. Motorcycles. Back in the day, we haven't used motorcycles since like World War II. A little bit in World War I here or there, but really World War II, we used motorcycles, right? To move people around. Now using them because they're faster than drones. Some motorcycles can outrun some of the drones. So you can quickly move up. The problem is you want to move as quickly as you possibly can because they can see everything. So if you can get an entire squad on motorcycles and literally move your entire squad before the enemy can see you and bomb you, you've just moved 2-3 kilometers. And now you can take the next town, next city, next trench line, whatever the case may be. So they take all these motorcycles, they get 13, 14 of them, and literally the Russians and the Ukrainians ask civilians to buy them motorcycles. I'm not making this up. They take donations, like on Give, Send, Go, or whatever, PayPal, whatever, take donations so they can buy motorcycles because the countries can't afford them. So they buy the motorcycles for the unit. The unit gets a bunch of motorcycles and then takes off, captures the trench line, and whoever is the enemy is will see the dropped off motorcycles, and they'll use their drones to blow up the motorcycles because they don't want to go back. So they'll use drone strikes to blow up motorcycles that are laying on the ground that the troops use to rush and take trenches. So then what I have to do? At night, they'll bring a truck by if they can and try to salvage the motorcycles and bring them all back and then repair the motorcycles. So they can use for the next round. That's what's happening now, AC. I'm just being very forward. This kind of stuff, this is back to World War I, my friend. They're back to trenches. They are back to tunnels. It has completely changed. All that has happened. So yeah, it's very weird. Anyway, it's very weird. So yeah, alrighty. Let's see if I can do this again. Peace Logic says, why do we need trench warfare? We can have thousands of low-cost drones. Will it be drone against drone? Eventually, we have to move towards drone against drone, but here's the issue. At one point, you were going to find that changing how drones work too. I'm sorry, I'm giving you a lot of stuff you guys may know. There is anti-drone technology, drone jamming, EMP type stuff that can jam drones. So the Russians have a new type of drone, and it's called a tethered drone. So they have a senior drone up here, and then the other drone comes down, it's tethered physically to the big drone. Well, then since it isn't using any type of wireless, it can't be jammed. They used to just use those regular ones that would just go through, right? Just go through, but then they started knowing how to jam them. So the Russians now learning how to physically shoot drones with shotguns. So you see a drone, and it's blown out of the sky with shotguns now. That's the new thing they're trying to. So they will eventually have some kind of anti-drone warfare eventually, but right now it isn't very strong. It was originally it was they would have it on the vehicles, right? The vehicle has a jam. So when they have a guy on top of the vehicle, sees a drone, boom, jam the drone goes off to the side, whatever, explodes, might kill the guy on top, but isn't able to penetrate the vehicle, and they'll be okay. So the Russians went, oh, we're just going to tether our drones to our big drone that you can't see. It's too high in the air with a really long tether, so you can't blow it up, and then it can't be jammed because it's a direct line. So they use tethered drones now. And so there is drone upon drone warfare, which is happening. But at one point, someone has to physically take the land. So no matter what, you are going to have infantry at one point. My gut says that eventually you're going to have to go to the old Starship Troopers, Robert Heinlein concept of each individual soldier has their own suit of armor, a bunch of Iron Men, basically. Because right now, most of these, again, I'm hoping you guys care about this. I don't know if you do, but what's happening now is they're using infantry fighting vehicles almost as temporary stuff. Like, I've got to get to point A or point B. So I grab a bunch of AFVs, armored fighting vehicles, whether it's a Bradley or BMP, whatever it is. I shove guys in it, and I go as fast as I can towards the front. So I get this fast as I can. Drones blow it up or hit it, whatever. But most ones that don't die because they blow the tracks up or the wheels up, so it gets stopped. At that point, the troops get out and move towards trench as fast as they can and try to win the battle, whatever the case may be. Take the town, take the trenchlets. At night, they go get these, bring them back, and fix them up again, right? So what you'll find also is they'll not only will they blow up the motorcycles, but if any of the vehicles are sitting there who've been wounded and been broken, they'll fly drones into the holes to blow it up inside to make it harder for them to repair that vehicle, right? They don't want the vehicle back if they can't. So the Russians actually are better than the Ukrainians at bringing the vehicles back because they've captured more land. So they bring the vehicles back, they rebuild the vehicles up and throw them back out again. And these are vehicles who've been blown up 3, 4, 5, 6 times. They just keep rebuilding them, fix them, send them back again. Rebuild them, send them back again. One of the reasons why the Russians are better at it, they're all using the same tools, same everything, right? It's all Russian-made stuff. The Ukrainians have this advantage. They've got German stuff, French stuff, American stuff, Russian stuff, Ukrainian stuff. So it's harder to repair because everything's different. The units are different. The parts are different. Russians all the same stuff. So half of their Ts, T80, T90, whatever, they're all similar. So you blow up a TX, whatever it is, you bring a bunch back, take a piece off this one, put it together, back out it goes. They're actually being better at doing this. So yeah. Anyway, I know I went a bit long on this one again. You guys give me some stuff to talk about, so I just keep going on. But yes, the warfare now in Ukraine is stuff that we did not know was going to happen. America was not ready for this. This is one of the reasons why Marines have stopped tanks. There's no more tanks in the Marine Corps. Marine Corps like, we don't need tanks. Tanks are worthless. We don't want them anymore. Because even the Abrams getting blown up. So I'm going to spend $20 million on a tank that's going to get blown up by a $5,000 drone, if that. Maybe a $2,000 drone. Destroyed. What am I doing that for? So they build a whole bunch of cheap but relatively strong infantry fighting vehicles, which basically have some form of suppressive fire to suppress trenches, machine guns, 20-millimeter cannons, whatever, that would just, somehow fight or even put up smoke to try to support the infantry. Infantry gets out, rushes, it gets blown up, and they keep going. And then rebuild, do it again. Rebuild, do it again. Again and again and again. So it's the value of capturing land is you get to recover your vehicles. And that seems kind of weird. But if you control the land, all of the destroyed vehicles, you now get to bring back and repair and make another attack. If you lost that land, you lost all your vehicles. You can't repair them. The enemy will take them. In the case of Ukraine and Russia, a lot of the vehicles they take are all Russian made. So even if you capture Ukrainian vehicles, many of them are still Russian made. So you pull that back, that helps put more stuff together. You get an Abrams, it goes, they put it in Moscow in a parade or something, but they can't really use it. But any of the Russian stuff they take, they can just rebuild their old stuff. And it keeps going, keeps going. It's one reason why they keep bringing out the old stuff. They're desperate. Not desperate, they don't want to waste their time. Why bring out a new thing just to get blown up anyway? Bringing out all my old stuff. It's just as good at getting blown up by a drone, right? So it's still just as good. So you bring it up, it gets blown up. The guys get out and run, bring it back, repair it, throw it back out again. That's how it works. So, yes. I keep going along. I apologize, guys. I know you guys. Yes. All righty. Roy says, America was so committed to the war, they refused to bomb the transportation systems used to perpetuate the Holocaust. And Germany was so committed to the Holocaust, they kept killing Jews till Hitler offered himself and camps liberated. He offered himself. Yes. This is, if you remember, the end of Schindler's List, Roy, I'm sure you've seen it. Everyone's seen it. Great movie. At the end of Schindler's List, Schindler literally says at the end, he says, the war's over. Hitler's dead. He says, here's your chance. Your orders, he tells the Germans who are guarding the prisoners, your orders are to exfil the prisoners. They're here. If you want to do it, go ahead. Or you can go home to your families and go home as men. And all the guards drop their weapons and go home. Yes, but it's true. That's an accurate statement. The orders were to kill them all until the end. Yes, that was their order. And look, we act like America cared about the Nazis and cared about the Jews. Did not. I'm not trying to be mean, but again, I'm going back to FDR again. There were literally boatloads of Jews coming to America during the Holocaust. And we said, go back to Germany. We don't care about you. I'm not making that up. That happened. Not just that. When did America declare war on Germany? We didn't. Germany declared war on us. We weren't all about, we're going to stop the Nazis. That's garbage. Never happened. Never happened. There was a thing in America, a group called the Bund. Some of you may know this. Remember they talked about this with Donald Trump in Madison Square Garden, the Nazi rally. That literally happened. That was American Nazis. The name of the group was called the Bund. That was the name of it. Basically means the people, right? And so it was a bunch of Germans, German Americans, and American Nazis were like, yay, Hitler's wonderful, love him. Yeah, America wasn't anti-German. You remember something. Some of you don't know this. The largest ethnic minority in America is German to this day. Over 20% of Americans have German ancestry. The largest one. Yes, Americans weren't about fighting over there. They were not. Roy is correct. Hitler declared war on us. We did not declare war on him. We declared war on him as allies. We declared war on Romania, Bulgaria. We declared war on Italy. We declared war on Bulgaria. We declared war on Romania and Hungary. So we did declare war on them. We didn't declare war on Germany. Not a thing. So anyway, I'm yapping away. I apologize. I do keep going. Peace, thank you for the $5. The difference between a cheap drone and these larger, more unmanned planes. One costs millions, the other costs maybe a couple thousand. Yes, and that's the point about that. I was bringing up the idea of a tethered drone. The Russians are doing that. Peace, you are correct. The Russians have a large unmanned aircraft, right? And it's physically tethered to the smaller drones, which then go through and blow up because those can't be jammed. You have to jam the big one, which is physically too far away. So they can't jam that. They job the other one instead. And that's the way the Russians get around jamming equipment that the Ukrainians have had. The Ukrainians do not have that yet. They do not have that technology. I mean, I guess they could have it, but they don't have it now. The Russians have it. The Russians also have supersonic missiles, which at the moment cannot be stopped. So the Russians have a lot of technology that we just cannot stop. Juan, become a member. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Every little bit counts. I appreciate the membership, guys. Thank you so much for becoming members. Yes. All righty. So I grab this. Let's see here. Roy says NATO's a treaty, so it already has congressional approval. And I disagree with that, Roy. You are correct. And I hate it. I don't like it. We should still have to declare war every single time. That's what I think. So you are correct. I'm not saying you're wrong. You are correct. I just don't like it. That's all. I don't like it. Yes. So Peace goes on to, why do we need trench warfare when we have thousands of cheap drones? Because someone has to take the land. At one point, someone has to take the land. Yes. Roy says, if only Hitler were a better artist in the first place, many lives have been saved. Thank you for bringing this up, Roy. This is the thing. People always tell me this. Not tell me. People talk about this all the time. Would you go back in time and kill baby Hitler? No. I'd go back to high school Hitler and go, you are an amazing artist. Did you know that? Here's money. Please move with me to wherever and let's start painting stuff. That's what I would do. I'd make him a good artist. I'm with you, Roy. We don't have to kill the guy. Make him a good artist. He doesn't join the army. He doesn't fight in World War I. He doesn't feel like he's in backstab. Doesn't join politics. He becomes a mediocre artist in, I don't know, Romania. Let him do that. Let him go to Austria and be the mediocre artist in whatever. Prague. Great. I'm with you. Just let him be an artist. It's all good. Yes. So Pigabow's on my side. Listen, she says, without losing WW1, the conditions that gave rise to the Nazi Party wouldn't have existed. This is true. 100%. Yes. 100%. That's absolutely true. So Kentucky says, oh, really? I didn't know that about FDR. I learn something every day. I know. I'm not an FDR fan. I know a lot of people are. He is loved by many, many, many Americans. I am not one of those Americans. I'm not a big fan of him at all. So yes. Renee, thank you, Renee, for this. FDR was too eager to please Stalin. My mom and her parents became refugees because Eastern Poland, from which they were driven west, was given to Ukraine. Stalin totally manipulated FDR and Churchill. 100% true, Renee. Thank you. Some people do not get that. 100%. The reason why we have what we had now, this is something people don't recognize this, right? We're mad because Germany invaded Poland. And that's how the war started, right? We couldn't believe it. Oh my God. You know who else invaded Poland at the exact same time? Russia did. Yes. The exact same time, the Soviet Union. It was called the Molotov-Ribbentrop. Make that wrong. Molotov-Ribbentrop. Hold on, I gotta find it. The Molotov-Ribbon something. I forgot the guy's name. Treaty. Pact. Hold on. Molotov. There it is. Okay. Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. That pact is what allowed the Soviet Union to invade Poland from the east, and Germany invaded Poland from the west. And we got mad at only the Germans. Yes, Renee, only the Germans. We didn't care. Then you know what the Soviet Union did after that? It invaded the Baltic states. It invaded Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. And we get mad at them. Not at all. You know what else they did? They invaded Finland. And we got mad at them. Not at all. The Soviet Union invaded Finland. They defended themselves. The Finns defended themselves. They fought a very long war called the Winter War. And during the Winter War, the Finns defended themselves. They fought on skis. They fought with reindeer. I am not joking. Against a Russian mechanized army. And they basically won. I mean, they lost, but they won. There were maybe a couple of million Finns total population against all of Russia, the Soviet Union. And the Finns fought them to a standstill. They actually had to do a peace treaty with the Finns. The Finns did not lose their country. The Finns lost population and the Finns lost some land. But they basically fought Russia to a standstill, fighting on skis with reindeer against a modern, at the time, modern mechanized army. Got to give the Finns credit for that one. They were not playing games. But the Poles got invaded at the same time. Why do you think it was so easy for the Germans to destroy the Poles? Because they got double teamed. The Russians invaded from the east. The Germans invaded from the west, and they crushed the Poles. Then the Russians invaded Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. They took over the Baltic states, and we said nothing because FDR loved Stalin. He loved Stalin. FDR thought Stalin was the greatest guy in the world. Loved Stalin. Yes, he loved the communists. FDR loved the communist Stalin. Yes, sat with him in Yalta and gave him all of Eastern Europe. Openly said, we're going to give you, didn't go for Berlin. Yes, Renee, he didn't go. America could have pushed on and liberated both all of Germany and Poland and liberated none of them. Didn't. Sat back and let the Russians do it. Over 2 million Germans and Poles were raped. I said, oh, I'm getting in trouble now. Were raped with an R, by Russian soldiers in 1944, 1945. I'm not making the number up. That happened. 2 million Poles and German women. Massive. It was the largest mass violation of women in the history of the world, done by the Soviet soldiers. Didn't make that up. Check it yourself. And what did FDR do? Take more land. Take more land. That actually happened. So, yes. There we go. Okay, yes. Job says they hate us because we bombed them, freaking men. Yes, it's true. 100%. Yes. All righty. Let's see. IC says everyone incarcerated because of the 1994 crime bill needs to be pardoned. I can't believe Bernie Sanders was a big supporter of the bill. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yes, I'm with you on that one. Yes. So, all right. Let me see this. There are so many of these. I love that. All right. The AC is really covered as low as 80. Oh yeah, talking about the trenches, of course. Yes. It's a big issue. A big issue here now. Phil says the trench is a fighting position that protects the soldiers from direct fire and hold the position. My one friend told me about how they were still trained on digging trenches and fighting positions. I was trained too when I was in the Marine Corps. I dug fighting holes. Yes, we dug trenches all the time. We were taught how to dig them and how to hide them, right? One of the things you talk about is you see a lot of trenches being dug up in TV, where in the movies where you see it's all put up and sandbags and such. We were taught the opposite. We were taught when I was in the Marine Corps, you dig your fighting position and you cover them up so they can't be seen. It's the difference between cover and concealment. Cover is physical cover from fire. Concealment is you cannot be seen. So we literally, you dig the hole and you have to hide the dirt because the dirt's a different color than the topsoil, right? As you dig deeper, the dirt changes color. So you can't put that dirt without putting other stuff down. So you would chop down other trees and stuff and put the trees in the dirt and put the bush in the dirt to cover up the colored soil. So anyone flying over, we'd have drones back then, but aircraft, helicopters coming aboard, and then looking over, people looking from far away with mules or whatever they're looking at, they can't easily see it. So you have to conceal it also. Same thing. And they're trying the same thing now, but it's hard because the trenches are so massive. It's hard to hide them. So now you're not worried about concealment. You're worried more about cover. That's the biggest piece. You're much more worried about cover. So yeah. Andy Cooper says EMP and lasers. Yeah, correct. Cyber warriors. Yes. Tinkerbell shocked with freaking laser beams. That's the next thing. Yes. That's the next thing. Absolutely. So, all righty. Roy says tanks will be self-driving cheap mocks to waste enemy fire before the real attack. I think that could happen. I do think you see some of that already. The problem, you see some of that already, and many of them are like the Chinese dogs that have guns with them. You see some of that already. That is beginning to happen already. You're seeing some of that happening already. The issue is at one point someone has to take the land, right? And in Why Liberty says we are Ender's Game level of warfare. All right, if you are fighting an enemy that is in another country, another planet, you're not going to invade the planet. The atmosphere is wrong or bad. You're not going to conquer the planet. Your goal is only to destroy the enemy. Ender's Game makes sense. I'm not going to invade the planet and hold the planet. I'm going to destroy the planet and the entire population. Ender's Game. Destroy all of them so the threat is removed. That makes sense. But on this planet, we're going to occupy the land. Right? We're not going to destroy everything. We're not going to kill all the women and the children. I mean, we do our best sometimes, but we're going to, generally speaking, we're not going to kill the women and the children. We're going to occupy the land. We're going to destroy the ability to fight and then occupy the land. That's where the Ender's Game analogy does not work. If it makes any sense, right? If the goal is just to destroy, the Ender's Game matters. Remember, in Ender's Games, they don't occupy. They just destroy. If your goal is just to destroy, it works perfectly. That's not how warfare works on this planet, though. So we would have to do it a different way. The soldier has to, at one point, jump on top at one point. So, yes. All righty. Let's see here. Dave says, that's the problem with the Russian army. They think a long war will last 2 weeks. Maybe. Dave goes, the Finns were shooting Russian soldiers still in some uniforms in the winter. Also true. Yes, good point. The Russians weren't ready for it. That's true. But it's Finland. So even in the summer, it's going to get cold pretty fast. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. Yeah, absolutely. John says the Polish resistance to the Russians were just outside of Warsaw. So they started a major uprising to make it easier for the Russians. I remember that. Yes. The Russian army sat 2 miles outside the city and watched as the Germans brutally destroyed the resistance, even putting civilians in front of firing squads and set fire to the city. Russia hated Poland. Yes, there was a joke in the Soviet Union when they occupied Poland. The joke was, they said there are 3 types of Poles, only 3 types. Really, what type? Those who are in prison, those who were in prison, those who will be in prison. That was a joke. The Soviets, to your point, John, did nothing but punish the Poles. You're correct. Nothing but punish the Poles. They punished them horribly. And when the Germans punished them, they were good. Punish them some more. They didn't care. The Russians did not care about the Poles at all. You're totally correct. And that joke, another secondary joke, similar to that. When Lech Walesa, was that the guy's name? The famous Polish freedom fighter from the 90s or to the 80s. 80s, right? 80s. When he was doing his thing, there was one of his subordinates was trying to, kind of push back against the Russian soldiers who were there. And he goes to the Russian soldier, all brave with all those people, goes, "You can't arrest us all." And the Russian soldier goes, "Why not?" That was his answer. Not, "You're right." He's like, "Why not? I'll arrest every one of you. I'll put you all in jail." Like, he did not care. The Russian soldiers did not care at all, John. You are 100% correct. That was an actual quote. The quote was, "You can't arrest us all." "Why not?" "Yeah, I can. Every one of you." Don't care. Absolutely terrible. Completely true. So yeah. The AC says there's a good book with general overview of the history of war. Is there? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer was involved. No. The name of the war was the Winter War. I'm sure you can find a book on the Winter War. It was 1939. 38. Hold on. I think 39. Yeah, 39. November 39. Correct. Right after, right? Because Poland is September 39. The Winter War is November 39, and it ended March 1940. Also known as the Russo-Finnish War or the Russo-Finnish conflict. Yeah, I'm sure there's tons of books on it. That's the name of it. So yes, I hope that was clear. So I appreciate that. And Rudolph was involved because they used reindeer. They actually had reindeer-towed artillery. Again, reindeer-towed machine guns. True story. The Finns would tow their heavy machine guns with reindeer or tow their artillery pieces with reindeer because that's how you get through the winter, right? The reindeer can get through. So they actually use that. Just crazy. So yes. All righty. Let's see if I can go through here. Adrian says, "I'm not a fan of FDR, but really like Eleanor." Me too, actually. Me too. I'm actually with you on that one. Yes. John says, "Nodding my head, but this is a team's meeting." But yes, you get it, John. You get it. Like, what happened. I'm with you, right? What happened. I'm completely with you. That's the way it worked. A lot of people didn't get it, but it's very true. Yes. The AC says, "Yeah, I'd like to know more about the tunneling tech they're using in Gaza and Lebanon." Now, that's some amazing tunnel tech. You are correct. The problem that they have here, right? This is an issue you have in Ukraine, is that if you want to use equipment to build your trenches, the enemy can see it. So they'll just bomb your equipment. Literally. That's the problem with that, right? So I want to use equipment. I want to dig massive fighting holes with, whatever, some big machine. Well, the Russians see and go, "Oh, let's bomb it." They just bomb it. Well, you can't do that. So now you got to do it literally through the shovel. And his issue is, right, the best way you can survive is having one guy with a shovel, because the odds of you getting droned go down. They might still drone you. They do sometimes drone for one guy, but often they don't. They'd rather you drone for like 10, 20, 50 guys, right? Or a vehicle or something. You don't want to waste your drone on one person, but they might. But the odds are less if it's one guy digging a tunnel. One guy digging a tunnel usually doesn't get droned, but does sometimes. So yes, I think that's a big difference. So guys, I'm going to ask you one more time. Click the button known as like. I know I went off topic here, but I often do. War is all over the place, and we need to learn what's happening so you understand what's happening, so you see what's happening here. This is a challenge for us, but I do not think we're going into WW3. I don't. I think we are actually in a Cold War again. I think we're back in Cold War II. And the senior partner is now China, where it was the Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union fell and Russia came up, Russia became a junior partner to China. China has grown in power and is a lot behind the scenes. I think we can still win a Cold War. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's harder. If that makes any sense. It's challenging to do, Not impossible, but it can be done. The question is, if we win this war, will we win the peace? I would argue we lost the peace in Cold War I. Can we win the peace in Cold War II? And this would go with what Dean's talking about. I would like us to actually win the peace and to have an actual peaceful world, not isolationist, but non-intervention, so that people can figure out how to fix their own problems, like expecting us to jump in and stop fighting wars all the time. There should not be an incentive for war. Sadly, there is. And when you're an empire, war is how you grow. Guys, if you haven't shared this, please do so. Share it into other groups if you can. Thank you so much for the super chats, obviously. Please become a member if you want to. Click that join button on YouTube, either the Sharpe Way or Larry Sharpe, either one of those. Please do so. And I'm also asking two more things. One, once this stream ends, please put a comment afterwards. You know who likes it? Mr. Rhythm, Al Gore Rhythm loves it. Please do so. And afterwards, if you're watching tomorrow, if this is not the right now, this is about 9 p.m. on the East Coast. If you're watching about 12 hours later or so, you will often see at the end of it, another video pops up. Two of the videos. Hey, you can watch this. Watch at least 5 or 10 minutes of the next video. Why? YouTube says, oh, he must have good stuff. And they like me for that. So if you're watching an older video, or they watch this another time, videos pop up, click on one of them. Go to the bathroom, let it run. Doesn't matter. It makes Mr. Rhythm happy. I appreciate it. Guys, I'll be back on tomorrow, 1 p.m. for my radio show, and maybe 7 p.m. again. 20 shows. I'm insane. I will see you all very soon.